Brought to you by JMR Rentals, professional digital cinema and broadcast equipment rentals in Brooklyn, New York. JMRNY.com. And now get 15% off your first rental when you use the promo code WEEKEND. Call 347-721-3400 or email info@jmrny.com for details. Hello and welcome to No Rest for the Weekend, where we go behind the scenes and talk to the creators of independent entertainment. I'm Jason Godbey, and joining me via Zoom today, he is an accomplished showrunner and producer, Mr. Alex Lemay. Welcome, Alex.
Thanks for having me, Jason.
So I want to talk to you about the different things you've been doing. I'd seen you speak at different places like Starable Fest, and I know you do a lot of consulting work and you help filmmakers, and I also know that you are a showrunner, so I kind of want to talk to you about your history there, and particularly what you're doing on Clubhouse. But first, I want to talk to you about you and kind of how you got started. So, how did you get in the show business? What is your origin story?
You know, the origin story is like a lot of filmmakers. I grew up with a camera in my hand. My father had this Bell and Howell Super 8mm camera, and he shot vacation stuff with it, but I'd sneak it out. We'd make these crazy epic, we did a lot of stop motion. We did some really wild stuff. And, there were no rules. It was a group of friends doing it. We fell in love with it. We didn't, give a darn, in terms of, trying to do it right. And so, it was super fun, and I always tried to maintain that fun, and it just never stopped. I started, I had a brief detour as an actor for a while on stage. I did a lot of Shakespeare in Canada and the US, and just realized that wasn't for me. I'm not, I've always generated my own work and just sort of made it up as I went along. And then, middle age hits, and now this is all I know how to do. I don't know how to fix a car. I don't know how to do electrical work. I don't know how to do anything, because this is all I really do.
I've heard you a lot on Clubhouse, which is a relatively new app. Can you kind of talk about what you've been doing there? And because I know you host a couple of different rooms and stuff.
Yeah, so we host a room on Tuesdays that are really about the emotional side of being a filmmaker, and that the price we pay and how we can have maybe a smoother path of it. And then on Thursdays, we talk about the hardcore business stuff, everything from distribution contracts to producing techniques and pitching techniques, a lot of pitching techniques. Same with our Monday room, which is about ask a showrunner anything. What I love about Clubhouse, it's like a combination between a late night dinner party and a radio show or a podcast, right? I can interview friends and colleagues and people who do really amazing things in the industry, or we can talk about, the subject always changes, and you kind of let the subject go where it's going to go in certain ways. I think we ended up on Vietnamese food the other day. And, it's a really free place. I think that, fame doesn't matter on there, or, I'm a working producer, so I don't have fame, but there's plenty of really well-known people on there who are super generous, and, it doesn't matter. They're willing to talk, and they're willing to have, everybody seems to be an equal on there for the most part.
With Ask a Showrunner, I've heard you guys a couple of times, and you've talked to different people, sort of interviewed them, and there's like an open Q&A that you guys can do, which is cool. Was that kind of born out of a need of something that you saw was missing?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things, when I talk about myself as a showrunner, I'm not at Warner Brothers, right? I'm at like YouTube Red, Spotify, Xbox. I'm in these crazy in-between full-blown filmmaking environment. but it lives in this nether region between traditional broadcast and digital, and the lines are so blurry now. So I will sit on the buying side often enough where I hear a ton of pitches. And what I mean by the buying side is I will be brought on to help a platform develop content. So what's their slate look like? Now we got to go find shows to fill that content gap, right? And so in hearing pitches day in and day out for months at a time over years, patterns started to develop in terms of what was working, what was the table with people that say yes and are stakeholders in and decision makers in the kind of work that gets done. I really studied kind of the psychology of a buyer and what are they afraid of and how do they want to be perceived, and so I really want to make sure that people aren't kind of stuck in this nostalgia of 1990s, 1980s Hollywood, when you could go from studio pre-internet, when you could go from studio to studio with a script under your arm and probably have a meeting. It was a smaller environment. It was like a weird high school party, right? And now everybody with a DSLR wants to be a filmmaker or is calling themselves a filmmaker. And that's fair enough. I have no problems with that. There's room for everybody. It's just 9 out of 10 people are going to have a pretty rough road because they're stuck in an environment where if I just have a good enough idea, I'll make it. I'll get discovered. There's this, I'll get discovered. And then there's this myth of, yeah, now I'm at the table and they just start feeding me work. Everybody I know who does this fights for every project they have, no matter the level they're at, right? So I want to sort of bring in people that are certainly better at what I do than I am, right? And I want to make sure that real advice is being given. I want to make sure that they understand that the industry is in flux and that my version of a showrunner might be different than that sort of institutional Warner Brothers version. I'm a producer who writes. I'm not a writer who produces. So I take a pass and I have a hand on the plates that are going out of the kitchen, but I'm not traditional in that way at all. And, so I try to really lay some groundwork for filmmakers that are going into it just because they don't know certain things. They're getting themselves maybe lost or frustrated, and I want to solve that for them.
It's kind of like two people coming at the same problem from two different angles, right? So you've got the creative person, the filmmaker, writer, who is coming to this with a creative problem to solve. He's serving a creative need. He's coming out with this, I've got this vision, I've got this idea, I think other people are going to like it, I think it's going to be entertaining. And then you've got the person on the other side of the table who's looking at filling their slate of shows or trying to really solve a business need about like, we got to fill Friday nights, or we got to fill this slate on your queue in Netflix or whatever. And how do you kind of? It feels like they're speaking two different languages.
So what I try to say is you can't just rock in with a plot, right? Because the people that are sitting on the other end of the table, they control the situation. They control who's there, they control what time it starts, they control who speaks. And only when you have the clicker do you have control of that room, and then that's your moment to drive the bus. But a lot of people will just launch right in to plot. And then. And it's not like it's boring, but you got to understand, people who hear 25, 50 pitches a week, they've heard it all. So it's just different variation and combinations of things. It's not to say they don't value the creativity. It's just they're afraid of saying yes to you more than they're afraid of saying no, because they got to go explain it to their boss why they want to give, Jeff a couple $1 million. And if they don't bring a hit in, it starts to get dicey for them. One whiff and you get given another chance. A second kind of fail, the red flags are going up. Third one, you're in real trouble. Fourth one, it's over. They're afraid of that. There's a lot at stake for them, but they also are not in the business of celebrating our art. That we're confronting the marketing arm, essentially, of the film industry when we're pitching. They don't have an access to creativity problem. They have an access to eyeballs problem. Their job is to sell ad units. Their job is to sell subscriptions, or their job is to sell movie tickets. So if they could do that by filming a ham sandwich, they would. So how can we be there for them, give them safe harbor, and we mitigate their risk by saying, look, what I do is very difficult to achieve. And therefore, I know what you guys do, and I can solve that problem, and here's how.
It's got to be one hell of a ham sandwich.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So with that, I feel like, again, in the language problem of I've got a plot or I've got a story, can you speak to that marketing person in a way that is in their language? The whole thing about a pitch, like it's a sales pitch for your project, but you don't want it to sound like a sales pitch. You want to sound like you're telling this really great, compelling story, which salespeople will tell you is also what they do. Is there a glossary of terms? Is there a type of language that you can speak to that?
So I always ask people when they come in, what kind of producer are you? What kind of writer are you? What kind of director are you? You know, or what do you want to be known for? And they're like, well, really a lot of people will be like, really anything. I can do comedy, I can do thrillers, I can do horror. And really what that person is saying to you is, what do you need me to be so I can get a check? Because I'm afraid and I want to sell my stuff. Then there's the game changers who know exactly what they make, and they're experts at this thing. They know who they make it for, and they know by which repeatable process they can continue to deliver stuff to a studio, right? Or a network or a platform. And so I always use this axiom. Start out with letting them know who you are and what you stand for. So I always have this little code this formula I try to do. It's my films help X achieve Y through Z. So in other words, my films help this very particular audience achieve this outcome through this process. So I had a client who I just love, and she explained her work like this. My work helps Black women overcome trauma through humor. I mean, now they don't care what you pitch, brother. Now they want that. Now it's you. So if the pitch doesn't go well, I can't tell you how many times after I learned that it was, this isn't right for us, but we have this other project. And we think that the way you see things is really great. Would you mind if we talk to you about it? And now you're on a totally different path, right? So I want to sell them something that first off fits into their mandate, right? So one of the questions I always ask is, what's the last thing you said yes to, right? And why do I ask that? Because they're literally going to go through the exact reasoning and process by which they make a decision. And so sure enough, I can tailor my pitch to that process and at least get closer to mitigating the risk for them.
What you just said, and I think all that was great. I think it's a lot easier said than done for a lot of people, because the first thing you have to figure out is, how do you fill in that algebra equation?
Here's what I want to say. Yes, you can float from genre to genre, but Tim Burton owns the word weird. It's unmistakable what Tim Burton does. So we can call it a personal brand, but it is a worldview that is easy to explain. Because if you have to give a diatribe to somebody at AMC or HBO or YouTube Red or Maker about your philosophy, they're done, right? They're just done. And so my feeling is that, and my experience has led me to believe that, and it doesn't have to be this profound statement, right? It can be something simple, like I shoot a lot of unscripted stuff with celebrity and athletes and all of that. And it's exceptional people in hard to reach places, usually, is what I do, right? I can own that. I could make something funny, I can make something heartfelt and inspirational, but I own that lane.
If you come from a position of, say, you're a writer and I think we all try different things out. You know, we got a
Yeah.
film noir and we got a comedy, we got a Western or something, and you want to come in to a pitch meeting. I think probably the first thing is, all these studios have mandates. And, we buy this, we're not going to buy this, nobody wants to see that anymore, et cetera, et cetera. But unless you have a clever representative, agent, manager, whoever's getting you that meeting, if you go on there yourself, chances are you don't know what that is. Is it okay to ask?
Of course it is, right? These aren't, these are people like I believe that, hey, I don't know that yet is a really great place to start, is not trying to know everything about everything or even pretend your way through it. Be honest. You know what? I'd love to know kind of what your mandate is for this year. I noticed that last year you guys were buying a lot of X, Y, and Z. Are you still on that train or has it changed and what is it? That means that you studied them. They care about that. How many times, and I don't, are you a producer? Are you a writer? Are you?
We currently have a project. We just made a proof of concept pilot. We're in festivals. We just won an award at Catskill Film Festival,
Awesome.
and we're trying to see if we can get in some doors. Which is my other question about, if you don't have representation, how do you get in the door?
80% of the content that I sell has been done without an agent. An agent serves me, and I've even gone away from agents because of all the muckety muck and gone with management, right? With a manager. It's just a little more freeing for me and for him. But I think that most people, most filmmakers, and this is not like, I want people to understand, I am not criticizing, because I am the first one to admit that I've done all of this. But a lot of filmmakers spend 80% of their time trying to get on set, trying to be on set, directing, producing, doing whatever, right? Being on set is maybe 20% of what we do. So if we're spending 80% of our energy trying to get 20% of the results, it's outweighed. So my suggestion is take 80% of your energy trying to create creative partnerships that are mutually beneficial, and ask yourself, how can I give to this person rather than how can I get from this person? Because you've probably been to industry parties where you see that person kind of looking around for that other person who's going to save their career or save their life, right? They're wearing their resume. They're only looking for transactional relationships. Really tough, right? If you go into it and work by the calendar, not by the wristwatch, you stand a better chance, because now you're working on a longer term. You're not trying to boil the ocean here. You're just trying to develop partnerships that you can serve, that play to your strengths.
Say you go in the door, or if you're lucky enough to get in the door, and you have, X, Y, and Z. You've got three different things that you want to pitch, and they're different genres. I think the essence of what you're talking about is sort of boiling that down to say, this is what I can do, and we do this well.
Yes, absolutely. And taking those three disparate genres and finding what the through line is on all of them, that place where they all rest. Because I guarantee you and everybody you work with and everybody I work with, we all work from a very particular place. We create a particular kind of content for a reason. So when you're talking about getting in the room, my short point is that you have to offer, not, so I have an inbox filled with read my script. Ask yourself before you reach out to that person, one, do you know what they make? Two, do you know what their history is? Three, do you know kind of what are they reading? What are they looking at? What are they posting online? How are they talking? How are they seeing the world? A good way to reach out to somebody who can make decisions in your around your work is to say, hi Janet, my name is so and so, and I am a filmmaker from here. Right? I just wanted to say I love the slate you put together last year. And this was the very specific thing I took away from it, Janet, right? So have a really particular thing that you got from that person. What did they give you? right? In terms of what was the reward of watching their work. It makes them know that you understand them. I had one guy, and I don't mean to go on here, but I had one guy, and I'll never forget his name. He's a 20 something. And he goes, Alex, I love your YouTube channel, and this is what I get from it. I always walk away feeling inspired and ready to go. And, I use what you tell me to do. But your title music, your title sequence music sucks. It's aged hip hop and it's showing your age. So I've written a piece of music for you that you can literally drop into the timeline of your title sequence. It fits perfectly. I've written it for you with you in mind. I don't want anything for it. Here you go. I've told that kid, his name's James Hastings. James, if you're out there, I love you, man. I've told him he's got an open door, because what did he do? He made my life better. He gave value to me instead of saying, please will you give me 2 hours, 2.5 hours of your time for a script you have no context for a person you have no context for, and can I sell you work, please?
I think it's a tall order. Like when I was in sales years ago, they used to say that prescription before diagnosis equals malpractice. And that's kind of what you're doing when you're pitching a script.
Yeah, exactly.
You're coming in there with a cure for a disease that doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
And without if you don't have the prior analysis. I mean, I think what you're talking about is probably, it takes a lot more time. It takes a lot more. You have to be more intuitive to kind of get the people that you're talking to and know where you're going. And, that's not easy for people because, at the end of the day, you're just trying to like figure out, how can I tell a story and how can I get people to see it? It's much more in depth than that. And I think the people who are successful, who can make a living, are the people who think about these other concerns that, frankly, nobody tells you in film school. Nobody it tells you in your creative writing class in college, and you certainly don't learn it when you start out in the theater or anything like that. And it's very it can be I think very shocking to some people to realize what you're talking about, and it's not just like I have a great idea, and because I have a great idea, somebody's definitely going to buy it because I'm awesome.
Oh yeah, I'm going to mesmerize them with my idea. They don't have an access to creativity problem. They're actually, most of them are marketing people in the film industry are very creative people and understand why content works. They already know how they're going to sell your thing if they say yes, right? And so I just want people to understand that you can fight it all you want, right? But there's just too much beautiful stuff that nobody sees out there. The internet is filled with beautiful stuff that nobody sees. And in order to be a game changer, your script needs to be buttoned up. Your presentation needs to be tight, and you need to be able, like, if your pitch deck, some people use pitch deck, some people don't, but my advice is in the early days, use a pitch deck that if it blew down the street, could a fifth grader understand what you do and who you are and why you want to make this picture, right? And if that can happen, it's not because you're pitching to stupid people. It's because their time to understand something and get excited by it is so short because they've got 15 other things on their desk to read by noon.
We could literally talk about this for hours.
Yeah.
But I think you have talked about this for hours on different panels and things. But I want to, before I let you go, I know that you're starting a new company. And can you tell me just a little bit about it, and then we'll get you to dinner or wherever you got to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are starting a new company called Film Harbor, and it is a platform that is designed to help filmmakers run their business, their careers like a business. We want to give them real seismic opportunity, and we want to change the voices that get to tell stories, because I think we're missing a lot of really great content creators and filmmakers because of just the stuff they don't know. and we shouldn't be denied that. So can we provide a platform that to make the introductions they need, to be able to have the events that they need that aren't some weird cocktail party on Sunset Boulevard where, you know, you're talking to other people who are in the same situation as you are, right? Where there's actual, you're getting showcased to agents, you're able to be funded and made. So I think that, you know, what we're trying to do is we're trying to help that filmmaker run a content business that is more predictable and more controllable.
Unfortunately, none of the things in this business seem to be predictable or controllable. You know, at times.
Totally understandable, right? But they don't have to be, right? Like there's things that are out of our control for sure. I always say, right? Like, you know, practical and reasonable are really short roads to mediocrity. We don't work in a practical, reasonable business, so why not do something huge? I think that the boldest move is the safest one.
It's certainly the one that gets you noticed, you know, and that's what we're in the business of doing. Like I said, I could talk to you, you know, we could do 2 hours of this, but I got to wrap up. So for people who want to know you, know more about you, listen to you, where can they find you on the web?
They can find me at Alex Lemay on YouTube. We put up a video a week that helps people, you know, smooth their path and get to the next step. Clubhouse every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, and the odd one thrown in between, but those ones are always solid. 1:45 p.m. Eastern, 10:45 Pacific, and we'd love them to show up. It's an open forum, and that's where they can find us. And then also at alexlemay.com.
Thank you all out there for taking this trip down the rabbit hole. For more of our content, including our movie reviews, visit our website, norestoftheweekendpodcast.com. Once again, I want to thank my guest, Alex Lemay, and I want to thank our sponsor, JMR Rentals. For Behind the Rabbit Productions, I'm Jason Godbey. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.